Hey everybody, how you doing? So, a while ago I read Thousand Suns by Graham McNeill, and I really liked it. It's the 12th book in publication order in the Horus Heresy series, and it takes place slightly after False God, so take that into consideration when you're deciding on how you want to go about reading the series. If anybody wants to know, I read this right after False Gods and before Galaxy in Flames. Thousand Suns follows the 15th Legion of the Legiones Astartes, called, of course, the Thousand Suns, if you couldn't tell. This book serves as an introduction to the 15th Legion and its notable characters, while also setting up the events of the rest of the series. It could be argued that the conflict at the end of this book is the first technical battle of the Horus Heresy. I'm gonna try to go over the plot pretty quick, but there's a lot to cover in this book, so go to this timestamp if you don't want spoilers. The Thousand Suns and their Primarch Magnus the Red are on this planet called Agoro, or at least that's how I think you pronounce it, I have no idea. Much to the confusion of the human crew and a lot of the Legion, but Magnus has stuck around on this planet because he's studying this mysterious mountain/pyramid-like structure. While on the planet, Magnus has ignored several calls for help from the Space Wolves Legion, and eventually a Space Wolves contingent shows up on this planet and demands that Magnus the Red and the Thousand Suns come to join them. Magnus basically tells them to screw off, and he threatens to destroy their ship if they don't leave him alone, and he says that he'll come to his brother's aid once his business on this planet is done. While investigating this mountain pyramid-like structure, the combined Thousand Suns and Space Wolves force is attacked by two Xenos Titans that are implied to be Eldar in nature. While within the pyramid, the Legion fights off a minor Chaos Demon who taunts Magnus during the duel with some interesting foreshadowing. Afterwards, Magnus joins up with Leman Russ of the Space Wolves and Lorgar of the Word Bearers, bringing a world into compliance. During this compliance, tensions rise between Leman Russ and Magnus, who come very close to trading blows. Afterward, Magnus and his legion head to Ulanor after the Emperor's triumph there, defeating the Orc Empire. During this meeting, Magnus is confronted by Mortarion, who accuses him of witchcraft. Kind of after that point, a significant jump in time happens where they're sitting at a space station refueling, and at this point Magnus gets a summon to appear at Nicaea. He goes to Nicaea with his legion, and when he steps onto the planet, he is greeted by Sanguinius and Fulgrim, his two brothers, and they are very somber. And there, they are basically, they were summoned there so that the Emperor could hear cases about the legitimacy of using what are called the librarians. And no, they're not old ladies keeping track of books. They're space marines who have been assigned to use their psychic powers to help in combat. And there are many in the Space Marine legions who very much dislike this practice, like Leman Russ and Mortarion, and they've basically ratted out Magnus for doing these things, and the Emperor is basically holding a trial for him. During this, Magnus gives an emotional defense of his practices, and we also see members of the Librarius, as they're called, from the White Scars, and I believe the Dark Angels also give very emotional testimonials, but in the end, the Emperor decrees that there shall be no more Librarius, and anybody who breaks this edict will become his enemy, and he will smite them. So after which, kind of defeated, the Legion goes home to their homeworld of Prospero. There, Magnus has kind of a series of visions where he decides that he has to contact his brother Horus via a psychic projection, and he catches him kind of right at the point in False Gods where Horus is badly wounded and he's in this comatose state and he's seeing visions, and Erebus is trying to make him join Chaos. Well, Magnus interrupts them, and this is actually a part we see in False Gods as well. But Magnus fails in this attempt, and he then decides that he has to contact the Emperor via psychic projection, but this goes, again, directly against the Edict of Nicaea, and the ritual required to do so is much more dangerous. During this attempt, during this ritual, the human crew, who has become very close to a lot of the high-ranking Thousand Sons officers, one of them suffers from violent visions, and her visions grow very strong and very apocalyptic during this time, and instead of helping her, the Thousand Sons try to get her to have more visions so that they can see what apocalyptic doom she is, claiming that will happen to them. And during one of these spits of psychic visions, she dies, and it really alienates the human crew from the Thousand Sons, and they were really starting to get along, which is a really kind of interesting dynamic that we don't see a lot in these books. During the ritual, Magnus is stuck. He can't get into the Emperor's mind. He can't warn him. So he makes an impromptu deal with Tzeentch, who's the chaos god of scheming and fate and change. And Magnus breaks down a psychic barrier, irreparably damaging the Emperor's secret project. And when he gets in, he sees the Emperor's face, and the Emperor is just saddened and destroyed, and Magnus realizes what he has done, and he's also destroyed, and the Emperor won't hear him. It's just really sad, and then Magnus becomes basically a recluse, and won't talk to his legion, won't talk to anyone, and in his rage, the Emperor sends the Space Wolves to apprehend Magnus and bring him to Terra, to Earth, to stand trial. What the Emperor doesn't know is that as Leman Russ, the Primarch of the Space Wolves, is going to go arrest Magnus, he is intercepted by Horus, who basically tells him, yeah, the Emperor is really mad at Magnus, you might as well just get rid of him. And Leman Russ, who we have seen doesn't really like Magnus all that much, isn't really objecting to going and just destroying him. So he goes and he does that. And they orbitally bombard the planet, just leaving the capital city, I think it's called Itza, the capital city of Itza, which is defended by this force field. And as the Space Wolves land and they start razing the city, and Magnus kind of refuses to come out and help his sons because he knows that he is guilty and he's willing to take his punishment, but his sons, the rest of his legion, don't see that. They're like, we didn't do anything wrong, we have to defend ourselves. So Chief Librarian Ezekiel Ahriman takes up command of the cities, and they fight against the Space Wolves till the bitter end. Basically, right as their legion is about to be overrun, Magnus comes down from his tower and he fights Leman Russ, but he is no match for the Primarch of the Space Wolves, and Leman Russ basically destroys him. At the end of this duel, they're kind of teleported to this mysterious planet called the Planet of Sorcerers, and that's kind of where the book ends. With that plot synopsis out of the way, I wanted to go over things that I liked, things that I didn't like as much, and some things that I noticed. First of all, I really like this book. It's probably my second or third favorite Horus Heresy book. And it not only serves as a great introduction to the Thousand Sons and a really cool piece of world building for the universe of 30K, but it's also a really good drama, and that's really what I look for in these kinds of books. Do they fulfill a purpose other than being a glorified Wikipedia page? Because, you know, if you want lore and if you want facts, you go to the Wikipedia page. If you want interesting character dynamics and cool scenes, you read the book. That's why you do it. And you definitely get your money's and your time's worth reading this book, because it is quite sad. It functions as a tragedy, and it's really good. Magnus and the Thousand Sons are such sympathetic characters, and there's a reason that the Magnus did nothing wrong meme is a thing. It's because of this book. Magnus is so destroyed. He feels like he's been betrayed by the Emperor. He was only trying to help. He is here. He isn't even fighting back against the Space Wolves as they're destroying his beloved city. He's going to accept his punishment and accept his demise. But it doesn't happen like that. And it's just really sad. And as I was reading it, I was just like, no, I know it's gonna happen, but it can't happen. Magnus is a good guy. He didn't do anything wrong. But in the end, kind of, you have to look back and see, well, he did break the Emperor's rules. But enough about that. Some criticism that I do have for this book is that it starts kind of slow, which seems to be a theme. The first 50 pages, you're like, alright, what are these guys doing on this planet? What does it... what's the point? There is a point. It kind of is pretty spoilery, so I don't want to get too far into it, but if you hang on by the end, it will make sense, and you'll be really appreciative of that slow start. And it's not really just filler. There is, however, a portion of this book that is kind of filler that I didn't understand why it was in there at all. While they're on Prospero, one of the human remembrancers gets infected by this, psychic parasite, and they make a big deal, oh no, she's gonna die if we don't get it out, but then they get it out, and it's fine, nothing happens. And that was a little bit like, alright, why is this in this book? It doesn't need to be here, especially when we have a lot of really interesting, sad, actual drama going on. Another kind of gripe I have with this book is it kind of makes the other Primarchs kind of like cartoonish villains. Like in a lot of these books, they do a really good job of humanizing the other Primarchs and making them sympathetic, and you understand them. But in this one, like Lehman Russ and Mortarion, they're just kind of cartoonish assholes. It's like, why are you being such a cock right now? There's absolutely no reason for it. It's just kind of out of the blue. And they do kind of redeem Lehman Russ. There's a short story in Burden of Loyalty called The Wolf King, where Lehman Russ is like depressed. He's just absolutely destroyed as, his fleet is being hunted by the Alpha Legion, and he's like, fuck it, I don't even care anymore. And there are some other books where they build Lehman Russ up to be a more sympathetic character, and he comes to address what he's done, but Mortarion doesn't get that, and it's just like, why are you such a cartoonish asshole? Which is kind of annoying, because they do such a good job of making Magnus and even Lorgar, for the 12 pages he's in this book, is more likable than Mortarion. But overall, this book is really good. I was excited and rooting for the characters, and I was sad and empathetic towards the characters at the end, and I'm kind of left thinking whether it's true that Magnus did nothing wrong, or if he did do something wrong. And it's kind of a silly question that the book leaves you with, but in the context of this universe, it's a really important one. Thanks for watching. Next up on the Horus Heresy review schedule is probably the first Heretic. Then I may have to take a short break just to catch up on the reading, but I'll see you guys real soon. Bye.